This is the Mi Mix 2, the second member of Xiaomi's exotic all-screen lineup. The new Mi Mix features many of the traits which made its predecessor a head-turner, but is more compact and packs a few extra bells and whistles. However, can it truly compete against its mainstream rivals? Join us as we find out. The design of the Mi Mix 2 is definitely one of its strong points. The smartphone features a 6-inch screen which makes it much more compact than its 6.4-inch predecessor. The display seems to run off the edge on three sides with a thicker chin situated at the bottom. The lower bezel also hosts the front camera, which is our only disappointment from a design standpoint. Stay tuned as we explain why in the following minutes. You'll find a ceramic plate on the back of this handset. The premium material is much more scratch resistant than regular glass, but it's also a fingerprint magnet and isn't immune to cracking. The 12-megapixel main camera occupies a central spot on the upper half of the phone. A fingerprint scanner is situated right below it, and we're happy to say that it's quite fast and reliable. The Xiaomi Mi Mix 2 features a 6-inch 1080p IPS display. It employs an aspect ratio of 18:9, meaning that it's taller and narrower than the regular 16:9 panels. This is not a fancy Quad HD specimen, but its pixel density of 402 ppi translates to some really nice and sharp-looking graphics. Our overall impressions are that the display is sufficiently bright and quite accurate in terms of color representation. This is further confirmed by our measurements. The color temperature is really close to the ideal 6500K, while the maximum brightness level stands at 517 nits. On the other hand, minimum brightness measures at 1 nit, meaning that you won't burn your retinas while using the phone at night. The Mi Mix 2 arrives with Xiaomi's custom MIUI 8 skin, which is based on Android Nougat. As you might know, MIUI bears a striking resemblance to iOS, and the China-specific version our review unit arrived with is rich in bloatware. If you're tech-savvy, you'll be able to get through the initial setup and delete a lot of the unwanted apps, but this is just another chore on the to-do list before you can actually start enjoying your phone. There's also a global version of the software available on certain units, but keep in mind that there's no real guarantee as to what you will end up with when importing such phones. Performance-wise, the Mi Mix 2 will breeze through just about anything. No game or app is too great for Qualcomm's high-end Snapdragon 835 chipset and the excessive 6GB of RAM. Cruising through the UI is generally stutter-free, save for a few minor software slowdowns here and there. In terms of internal storage, the handset comes in three versions: 64, 128, and 256GB. Neither of these features an SD card slot, so you only get the storage you paid for. The Mi Mix 2 comes with a single 12-megapixel main sensor. It's capable of taking decent shots under proper daylight conditions, but low-light performance isn't all that great, as photos tend to come out noisy. In such situations, the HDR mode does help out a bit. As for the camera app itself, we have to say that it's certainly not lacking in features. All the essentials are here: HDR mode, Pro mode, panorama, a variety of filters, and so on. However, what bugs us is that the HDR mode has to be enabled manually, and doing so introduces a noticeable delay between shots. Finally, let's address the elephant in the room. The 5-megapixel front camera isn't anything special, but its positioning certainly is, and not in a good way. Due to the minuscule top bezel, the camera is positioned at the bottom right corner of the phone, so most of your shots will be taken from a weird angle where the focus is on your chin and shoulders. A rather unique feature of the Mi Mix 2 is that it supports a whopping 43 wireless bands, including CDMA ones. This means that you pretty much have global LTE support. In theory, even if the Mi Mix 2 isn't sold in your country, you can import it and it should be compatible with your network. Still, it's always advisable to check with your carrier before committing to a purchase. The hybrid SIM tray allows you to use two SIM cards at once, but as we mentioned earlier, there isn't a slot for a micro SD card. The 3400 mAh battery on the Mi Mix 2 is quite smaller than the huge power cell found on its predecessor. Still, the handset managed to clock in at 9 hours and 5 minutes in our custom battery test, which is a pretty decent result. In our experience, you should be able to go through a busy day with some juice to spare, but this is a subjective matter as everyone uses their phone differently. All in all, the Mi Mix 2 is one very exotic and unconventional smartphone. Xiaomi has put a big emphasis on the design of this handset, which has led to sacrifices being made in other key areas such as the camera department. Consumers in Western markets ready to take the plunge could pay up to $650 after taxes plus delivery and import fees. That's not the heftiest price tag we've seen this year, but we have to remember that some of the all-screen competitors of the Mi Mix 2 have dropped in price as well. If you want to impress people with a great looking phone, it might make sense for you to try and buy the Mi Mix 2. Still, we would only recommend it if you're tech savvy and are ready to handle MIUI's peculiarities. Another thing to consider is the fact that support coverage can be limited or non-existent depending on where you live. This may seem a bit disappointing, but at the end of the day, the device is not intended for casual users in North America or Europe. This was a review of the Xiaomi Mi Mix 2 by Plummet at Phone Arena. For the full scoop, make sure to check out our written article linked in the description below. Thank you for watching and see you next time.